Mickey. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm trying to sneak this and be in on this class. I don't know how long I can be here, but
You're okay.
oh,
And I am having a tough time hearing you, just so you know.
you are. Oh, dang. Ugh.
There you go. That's better. It's like you got closer to your computer.
Well, it's. I'll just go ahead and my computer's on its last leg. Let's see.
Oh,
How's
yeah.
that?
That's good.
Oh, good. Good, good. I might have little people barging in or screaming, so I'll stay as long as I can. How's that?
Well, you're good.
So, is it just us? Or it's still
Well,
early?
yeah, it's just now 10 o'clock, so we'll give people a couple minutes to see if there's anybody else coming in.
How's business down there?
It's still moving, slow, like everywhere else, but it's still moving. I got one listing coming up next week, one as soon as she gets it cleaned out, one in Laramie next week. And then I've got three buyers that are actively looking, bunch of buyers that are want to do it, but can't yet. And then three other listings that want to sell and then buy, but we haven't even put their houses on the market yet. So it we'll
Yeah.
see if they see something they like. That's usually when they call and they're like, oh, hey, there it is. That's the perfect house. And I'm like,
Yeah.
telling you, we have to have yours listed and maybe under contract. And they're like, yeah, but this is the one. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, how about you?
Well, I just got one under contract. I'm waiting to hear back on a counter today. Like crazy. Like I have a over like $1 million price point, out of state buyer, crazy low ball. And then same thing, I'm trying to sell our house, our other house, out
Yeah,
of state buyer, crazy low ball offer. I mean, I told the I told the other agent, I'm like, you know what? Like, who has time like this to waste? I think I'm just going to reject. I rejected the first one and they got butt hurt. And so we did, after two counters, get under contract. And I was almost going to reject this second low ball. It's like, do you want to move to Wyoming or not?
right.
Right.
No, well,
So,
and I think there's the other side saying, hey, do you want to sell it or not? Right.
right, right, right. But there's still,
And
we don't have a lot for sale. We
yeah,
still have
and
to do,
if you got time and low inventory, and
yeah,
those, you're definitely sitting good on that side. So
yeah. So anyway, but I have a cabin that's up in the Bighorns that is very not well, they call it a cabin. It's a house. And
okay.
but I've had zero. Like I think because with the fires last year and then
What's the price point on it?
950
Yeah.
and he insisted he paid for an appraisal and he insisted on listing above appraisal. I'm like, what can you do?
Right.
You know? So
Uh,
anyway,
it is what it is, right?
I know, I know. I'm just
They're in control of the price point. All we can do is make recommendations.
right, exactly. So
What we got here? So we are the first question I'll ask you, Mickey, is have you had to write or add um any clauses that you haven't had access to?
no,
No, everything in there has been what you needed.
yep.
And in the buyer's agency agreement, you're still putting those three clauses that I always ask you guys to put in there.
Uh
You
can
know
you
what those
remind me?
are?
Well, no other buyer's agency. I always put that one.
Yep. What
What's
else do you put in there?
uh I have to go cut and paste it. I always
Oh, that's okay. You just cut and paste them out of there.
uh-huh.
Okay. Because there are three of them. Those three right there.
Buyer agency, no other agreement, transaction fee authorization. Yes. I
Okay.
don't always do the transaction fee, but
No, that's fine. I mean, that's your call on that one, as long as the other two are
yeah.
in there. So anytime you do get into your additional provisions section, whether that's in um, a listing agreement, a purchase agreement, or a buyer's agency agreement, all of those clauses that you can use and are approved are in your drive. And I gave you access to those already. Have you looked at
Mm-hmm.
them? Okay. So, and if you have something that you need to do that's outside of something that's in there, you just have to talk to myself or Tim or David or somebody, Will Dixon, to make sure that somebody gets a set of eyes on something else that you're doing in there for what it is. There's some standards, and I think, Mickey, that we may end up adding. The reason that I never did is because the transaction fee changes and stuff, but um, it might be worth adding these clauses in and saving it in our template. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, Fairly easy to copy and paste them as well. So kind of is what it is kind of deal. But um, have you used any of these lately, Mickey? Anything that's come up or that you
I always use the appraisal when it comes to when I'm representing buyers. I always use and doing a contract. I always do the appraisal. I always do that extra 15-day. Um,
under extension?
yes, I always do that. And then I haven't had taken a new listing um lately, but I'm gonna always on my listing start putting that roof thing about because this has been the craziest summer with hail.
When you say the listing one for the roof of clause, which one is that?
The one for hail damage or whatever, the seller being responsible for monitoring it or
Oh, gotcha.
yeah.
I don't know that I had. That's the one they're using in South Dakota? I don't know if I ever added that one in.
I haven't used, I mean, everything's had a new roof that I've done lately, so
Right.
but I feel like that's an important one.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that on my notes. I need to go add that in here.
Uh-huh. We were on a road trip last week and this guy in I stopped in Shields and the guy there, he said he lived up by the rim. He's had 5 roofs in the last 15 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bet. And you're just talking about the one that South Dakota is using that says, "Hey, once you're under contract, you're responsible as a seller to make
Yep.
sure that the roof stays in the condition that it is, and if not, you get it checked out."
Yep. Yep. Because I really learned my lesson with this last listing that I sold. I won't take up time here talking about it, but the seller wasn't really giving me the full story. I found out not till the end, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
No, and
and
that's one of the things talking about, the lawsuit that Kara was in and that kind of stuff.
mhm,
When you're having those conversations, if you're unsure, dig deeper, right? Ask more questions, find out
yep,
what else. Okay. So you can still use this first one in the additional provisions. If you're
mhm,
signing the full sheet one, this one you don't have to use. So we're going to decide whether I'm going to pull this one or not.
mhm,
The other one is a little bit more in depth, and I like it better. But this one still sort of does the same thing. We've been using it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before they brought the other one out. So um, for you, sir, um, most of these are, well, all of them are usually put in to protect whoever you're on, right? So if you're on the seller side, you're protecting your seller. If you're on a buyer side, you're trying to do something to protect the buyer. But the less clauses or the less things that you have to add to a contract, typically the better off you are. You don't want to put things in that contradict something else. And that's why we've had all of this language approved. And you don't want to put something else in that opens up any liability to you or to your buyer or to your seller. So all of these have been approved by Mike Lansing out of Casper, who is the attorney both for the Wyoming Association of Realtors and actually the attorney that we use. So it fit a nice little niche in there for him to be able to say, yeah, these are all great. Do them. And he tweaked a little bit of language and that kind of thing. In your purchase agreement, I would suggest to Mickey's point that she uses this. I use this in almost every purchase agreement that is financed, and it just means that if you get to the end of a contract and your closing date is coming up, and things aren't quite right with the lender, they haven't gotten the appraisal back, which is why this one originally came about during 20 and 21, or the fact that something hasn't come back, it hasn't come back out of underwriting or something like that. This basically just gives you 10 business days without having to get another extension to extend that contract and make sure that you get it done. As
Well,
much,
and
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt. And it's super important because I just had a closing and the lender sent the wrong documents.
For the disclosure.
Yes. So we didn't close on time, no fault of the buyer. And that would have been a major headache trying to go back and forth getting signatures.
Well, and that's the deal. And what we always kind of teach or preach about it is at the beginning, nobody thinks there's going to be any trouble with it. So
Right.
it's easier to get them to sign an extension at that point than to get to the end and have them be upset about whatever's going on and then try and figure out how to get everybody to sign an extension and let it go. Now, everybody still wants to get it closed, but by that point, things are boiling over and it's going crazy. So just easier to get it done at the beginning. I've never had anybody refuse it at the beginning, and I've used it multiple times at the end. So just a great option to have in there. If you are in Cheyenne, use this roof inspection clause, which says any necessary roof repairs as identified in the roof inspection to be paid for by the seller. Takes it out of negotiations for the repair section and puts the responsibility, the onus directly on the seller to say that you need a 3-year life cert on the roof. If you don't have it in there, you can still ask for whatever you want, but now it's in repairs and it's just a negotiation. It's, are you going to pay for all of it? Are you going to pay for half of it? What are you going to do? If it comes back and the roof is bad with this clause in there, then the owners have to do whatever they need to do to get you a good roof. Now, I'm telling you as a listing agent, if you're writing that clause in for me and I don't know what condition the roof is in, or I'm questionable about what condition it is, I'm probably countering and taking that out before I accept an offer that's in there. Now, if we've gotten a roof certification or inspection ahead of time, I'm less inclined to take it out. Now, there could always be another roofer that comes in and says, "Oh, hey, nope, it's not good." But the ones that we use, we trust, and they do a pretty good job for us for what it is. So you can make your own decision when you have the seller, when you have the buyer. Absolutely, put it in. Have you tried that where you're at yet, Mickey?
No, but I could see doing it like going forward for sure.
Right.
And
So
this things just, I mean, everything's been pretty good, lately, but as the market changes, things get way more nitty gritty about all of this. So I'm super thankful to have these in there.
yeah. Um, Covenants or HOA docs receipt. So typically, if you're going to have it in Cheyenne, the contract in I'm sorry, in Wyoming, the contracts are written such that the buyers have to basically acknowledge the fact that they've seen the covenants or the HOA, that there's one there, and that they'll abide by them. So typically, if you can put that in the contract and then just have them initial the pages of the covenants or the HOA docs, that works to be able to do it and have that acknowledgement in there. Covenants receipt, if there is no HOA, just takes the HOA language out of it. In Wyoming, and this is and every Mickey and those guys and other places do it a little bit different, but Wyoming statute actually requires that there be a water test to transfer property um, for what it is. Laramie County is a little more strict about it than what the other counties are, but by putting this in, as opposed to your buyers having to pay for a well and septic test, which is about, I think it's $435 now. This does the same thing the roof clause does, and that is shifts the cost. The seller shall provide the water testing. No, no, not that one. Do, 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 do. the cost of said inspection to be paid for by seller. And it also says that the septic needs pumped, that the seller needs to pay for it. And the pumping of the sewer or the pumping of the septic could be 400. So you're probably $800 here. That if you put this clause in, which other places would probably take out and refuse, but it is standard of practice in Cheyenne. So if you have a rural property and you put this clause in there, you're saving your seller or you're saving your buyer about $800. On the
Where do you,
sell side,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Where do you
No,
see the septic part? Pumping the septic on there.
da, da, da,
Oh, wait, require pumping. Yes, I see it.
yeah,
Sorry.
requires pumping. And it means it just has to have been pumped in the last 3 years.
Mhm.
So, and they always tell us if we don't have a receipt within the last 3 years, then you have to have it pumped before they'll come do the inspection. So yeah, it saves your buyer, and again takes it out of the inspection, all the negotiation that goes on there, and just puts it in a place where seller is responsible for. If you get to a point where you have an escalation clause, um, we did these a lot in 20 and 21. Definitely want to have a conversation with one of us about exactly what the repercussions of it are. But basically, it says if you make me, I'm going to make you an offer, and the offer is going to be call it 400,000, and then I will pay 2,500, 5,000, whatever that number is, more than any other verified offer that's on the table, up to a certain dollar amount over and above. So up to a maximum net sale price of whatever that dollar amount is that you want to do in there. And then contingent the competing offers can't be contingent. And then net sale price is defined as the contract sales price less any concessions or anything like that you're making on it. So more than and the dollar amount can be whatever you want it to be, but it has to be significant. If somebody goes, "Hey, look, I'm going to pay you $5 more than any other offer," probably not very effective. Somewhere in the $2,500 range is probably the best place to start. But then your people have to understand that they could be paying over what the appraisal price is. So then you're looking at these appraisal gap clauses so that you'll say, hey, look, I'll pay over appraisal, but I'm only going to go 20 grand over or 30 grand over. And again, then you get to be in the escalation part of it and protect them with the appraisal clause still by saying, look, I know this is over appraisal. We'll pay this much of a gap on it. So you get into something like that, let us know so that we can have some conversation about it. Although the financing portion of the contract says that if you can't get it financed, right, you can't buy it, then we'll let you out of the contract. We put an appraisal clause in just to really CYA kind of thing. Just says, hey, look, if it doesn't come in right, we want to be able to renegotiate it for what the price is. There's two options in there. I don't know how this would hold up. This one just says all other terms and conditions of this contract to remain the same. You're in negotiation for repairs and you've already signed off on that stuff. I kind of want to leave it the way it is. Now, as a seller, I probably wouldn't, because if the appraisal didn't come in, it comes in low, and I've already committed to a certain amount of repairs. I might now want to say, look, I want to pay less repairs. I use the one that locks that out at least with language, and then they would have to sue me to get it changed. I don't know which one you use, Mickey, but I use the one that says all of the other conditions of the contract to remain the same. If you haven't
Yep.
negotiated all that, everything's on the table.
Yeah.
But and then there are different versions of repair stuff that and I don't know if you've tried any of these, Mickey. We use these whenever they're appropriate, I guess. But this one says that the lender appraiser repairs are negotiable. Parties agree that if repairs are required by the lender or appraiser, it pretty much says the same thing in the contract, but it's just reinforcing that look, we're going to be on the negotiable side of it. This one says that they would be the seller responsibility, which is kind of the adage that says, hey, look, you put it in the MLS. You said you'd take an FHA or a VA offer. we offered FHA or VA and you said yes. So now you got to make sure that that property goes FHA or VA. So we say, hey, that's going to be the seller responsibility to make sure that that happens. And then that it's done outside of section 10, which is the other repair section or the inspection and repairs negotiation that's in there. This one says that if there's a house out there in the MLS and they list it and say, hey, look, we're selling it as is, where is, whatever the case is, and you want it to go FHA or VA, that you'll take responsibility as a buyer to pay for those things to be done. Still be done and build out at closing, but that you're going to pay those so that it doesn't cost the seller any more money. Because in the contract, it says that I'm going to purchase the house. I'm going to purchase it this way. I'm perfectly welcome to change or do some different kind of financing, but it can't cost the seller any more money. And this is kind of the same thing. If we're going to accept that kind of an offer, I'm not paying to get it done. I told you I wouldn't sell it that way. If you want to, then we'll have to just get it so you take care of it. We did make a lot of offers, which to Kara's point through the um, her lawsuit the other day, if you're going to do something like this, I'd have the buyers sign off about 22 times in different places. Every CYA kind of thing that you could cover that says, "Hey, we're going to do inspections." Because the thing that Kira had was, we're not going to do inspections and it's as is, right? This isn't quite like that. This says, hey, we're going to do all the inspections, but this is a commitment from the buyers to say, hey, not looking for nitpicky things, right? And maybe we should throw a dollar amount in this at some point to see if you do. But it just says that buyers are doing inspections but not making any requests for repairs other than lender or appraiser required. Buyer does retain the rights in section 10 sub B of the contract to buy and sell real estate should inspection results reveal significant repairs to be required for the property. Significant repairs to be determined at the sole discretion of the buyer. So you can put a dollar amount in there, maybe. Hey, we're not looking for anything under $500, under $250, under $1,000 or something like that, whatever. But then just remember that you're going to have your people held to that in the contract. But it gives you a way to say, hey, look, yeah, we're making an offer. We're not doing it just taking it with the way it is. We want to inspect it, but we're not looking for the $2 this, the trim piece on this, things off of the 48-page full inspection report, that kind of stuff. Um, and every MLS is a little bit different. So, and you guys have never really hollered at me to tell me any of these don't work in the MLS you're in. But if you are making an offer and the house is already under contract, I'm sorry, if you're making an offer and you have to say sell a piece of property or do something else, you may make a contingent offer. And then in that contingent offer, typically there's a time frame. I will tell you that as a buyer's agent, I typically make an offer with a contingency that looks like this. I make it very generic and I don't put very many specifics in it so that we have more flexibility. It just says that this contract is contingent upon the successful sale and closing of the property and at this address on or before the closing date defined herein, and it's to be listed for sale on the MLS by boom and marketed to the public. Very generic, very just put it in. And if I'm going to buy your house, I have to do this first and no other conditions on it. As a seller's agent on the other side, I'm going to respond back to you and go, too generic for me. I want a right to be able to kick you out of the contract. And then I want some very specific things when they come back into me. So when you look at this version of it, this 3-day contingency, and you can do this 3-day, 2-day, 1-day, whatever you wanted to do it. But it says basically that the contract's conditioned upon the buyer selling and successfully closing same kind of language was in there before on this contract. Buyer's home will be listed, da da da, same thing. Um, and then you are going to continue marketing and showing the property. In the event that the seller receives another acceptable non-contingent offer, so you got an offer in, contingent on selling the house. I'm telling you that if I get another offer on it, I'm going to have a certain time frame. I'm going to notify you and say, look, you can't pull your contingency. This one's 3 days. You can't pull your contingency in 3 days. Then we're moving on. You get kicked out, and then this other offer moves into first position. So it gives you an ability to take an offer, even though they can't perform on it yet, with conditions that still allow you to show the property, advertise the property, and take another contract with some stipulations on it. I would tell you that if they can't do it in one day, they can't do it in 3 days. But I don't think it really matters what that time frame is. We've just kind of standard of practice in Cheyenne has always been a 72-hour contingency or a 3-day contingency on it for what it is. Um, so once you get through this one and you pull the other part of it, it still technically has to close. So then we usually update it with an addendum that has this line on it as we're pulling the other part of the contingency. Um,
Wait, just
Go
clarify.
ahead.
So you need both of those,
Um,
or what?
so
Once
so
you get the contract,
if you put this in and then you go to pull your contingency, then it still has to close.
got it.
So and technically it's sort of understood based on the language. But yeah, we just typically throw this in the addendum and add it on there and then say, hey, based on the fact that we're removing the contingency, the subject property still has to close. It has to close before we close on this one. This is the language that's in the contract already. I'll probably pull that out of here. But it tells you in the purchase contract what you work for, the brokerage firm that you're working with, that your buyer that you are with, and then so what are you guys? Western Trails. We're
Mhm.
we are Frontier and Newcastle, and those guys are Black Hills over there. So that in this line, and then that you just this is what you get paid for, either a percent, dollar amount, or however else cows doing whatever else you got going on, that kind of thing. The language is in the contract. If you need to do it or tweak it or add something different to it, you can look at this or line the other section out. And I'll probably take this one out of there too. Um, Listing agreements. You gotta have these two things in for additional provisions. I apologize. Let's do this. This one has to be in there all the time for whatever your transaction fee is going to be. Depending on how you list, depends on whether you put these next two in. So two options to list, and I don't know if you've listed this way yet, Mickey, but one is we can look at paying a buyer's agent because you're okay with that, but we don't have to commit to a fee or a percentage or anything like that yet. We can let them bring them to us in offers, and then we can just put all of the things of the offer on the table and negotiate it all out. My fee, closing costs, buy downs, whatever you got all on the table at the same time. And it just says that you'll pay up to, and then we say, what's the highest you would pay? Great offer, everything works for you. 2.5%, 3%, whatever that number is. So I would put 2.5 or 3% in here, whatever that number is. And then I line these two out because I don't do anything else. And then buyer's agent fee to be negotiated and offer to purchase, acceptable offer to be determined at sole discretion of seller, and seller authorizes listing agent to, and then you pick whether I can disclose that cap or not disclose that cap. Um, and there's advantages, I guess, to both ways of communicating it. Bottom line is, if you're going to list this way, once you do it, the agent compensation cap is agreed to by seller, and then when you do it, it's in the contract to purchase, so it's ratified and both parties have agreed on it. If you do this one, then you also have to add in this one, which is what happens if I bring. So the way the car contracts are written in Wyoming, it says you as a buyer, you as a selling agent, will take 5, 6, 7% of whatever the listing is, and then you will take half of that and then pay it to a buyer's agent or a intermediary or somebody working as a customer or whatever the case is. So we change that if you start listing this way, and we put in those sections above that just says that as a buyer's agent, or I'm sorry, as a seller's agent, listing agent, this is what I work for: 3%, 2.5%, 3.5%, whatever that number is. And I work for that. And that's only to cover the, I have to add that one in here too. But basically, that we take that as our seller's agent fee, and then buyer's fee to be determined in the contract. So we sort of turn it on its ear a little bit right there. Yeah. So you got to make sure you understand those two sections. And then this one says if somebody comes in as an unrepresented buyer, so they're just a customer on the other side of the table for me, or they come in and I work with them as an intermediary because maybe it's another client that I have. So I've got a buyer's agency agreement with this person and a sell listing agency agreement with here. If I step down to intermediary and work with those both, then what happens? And this line just tells you that it'll be so. And a lot of people do that's 5.5 or 6 or 7 if I'm doing all of the stuff and then splitting out the other half of it. For this one, since I'm doing both halves of it, maybe it's easier for me a little bit. Maybe I give you a little bit of discount. Maybe if you come in as a customer for me and I don't have to work hard for you, I just have to do all the time bound, legal, all of those kinds of things, then maybe I'll give you a little bit of a discount. But then you pick that number and put it in here. When do you do both sides, Mickey?
I haven't. I haven't. It
You
just
refer
never
that
has. It's just never happened, but I do use that clause in there.
Gotcha. Okay. Put it in. The other thing that you can do is you can always refer that out. Steph and I typically refer back and forth to each other. So
That's what I think is great. Yeah.
if I get somebody on one of my listings, and they want to buy it and they want me to represent them, I just refer them to Steph. I just
Yeah.
tell them I think that you deserve representation. You need somebody that can battle for you and advocate for you and do that. And then I just take the 25% from Steph and
Yeah.
everything's all good.
I think that's the best way.
I do also think that if you went to court, that would be if that's the way you behave. I think that would be fantastic, right? If
Yeah.
somebody brought that out. Okay. Again, specific to MLS. So, uh, and some of this is going to possibly change a little bit here in September. This is, do you know what the rules are for coming soon in Cheyenne?
Not specifically saying.
So it's basically NAR's exact implementation, but basically, if you advertise it publicly at all, has to be in the MLS within 24 hours.
Sean, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to go. I got a screamer
Okay.
happening.
Nope, that's
All
okay.
right. I
I saw
know.
your app pop in there. Looking, he had a little bit of like help me face on. So
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I
you guys are
appreciate
making
it.
thanks for hanging out.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So you put a sign in the yard, you post it to Facebook, you technically you go talk to somebody about it, right? That's public, it's not you. Um, Even internally within the brokerage, you cannot show it to anybody. You can't show it to any clients you have, you can't show it to any clients the brokerage has, and nobody else can show it out there. Has a start date on it for showings, and nobody can look at it until that date. There's a you
So, and that covers the coming soon. So if I put a sign out in the yard and still say coming soon, I don't have to say it's active.
right.
It just has to be coming soon.
Right. And you have to either put this clause in the listing agreements, or there's a separate whole page one in the documents, in the Wyman documents that you can do. So you either have to do one of the two, and then that listing is supposed to go to, and you can email it, a copy of that listing agreement to Jenny at the board office, because they have to have coming soon one on file and any office exclusive one. on file down there. Okay. Um, the thing I will tell you about our MLS and coming soon is that coming soon is an active status in our MLS. So right now, if there's a price change or it's a new listing, it automatically goes out to everybody. Coming soon would go in the system, stay as coming soon. And then because that's already an active status, it would have sent it out originally when the listing came up, but it won't redo it when it goes active. So I have mixed feelings about how effective coming soon is in our MLS. So if you want to do that, we can talk about it, but I would make sure that I've got pictures, all the stuff, drone, whatever you're going to do, all done and ready to go and treat it like it's really going live that day. And then when people look at it, they'll see all the good pictures. A lot of people will go just front of the house and then it sits coming soon for 2 weeks and then goes live and nobody sees it pop back up. Now you've got all the photos in it, all the things. Right. So if it's coming soon and you're going to market the hell out of the coming soon is everything that's done and you're going to use coming soon as a value piece to add in, then I would make sure that all my stuff's done ahead of time. It's all in there. And then I'm going coming soon to try and do either accommodate the seller for something or just I'm using it as a marketing tool and saying, I'm just trying to build hype before I let anybody in the door. Right. Because you could go coming soon, all the pictures in it, it looks gorgeous, lawn's taken care of, drone footage, you being your guy in the shed, whatever you got going on, all the craziness, and then use it as a marketing tool to get people and then say, it's great, it's all going to be good. You can't see it until, and a little bit of scarcity kind of action there, right?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to get stuff done because I don't have pictures done and all that kind of thing, I don't think it's effective to put it on as coming soon. I would probably take it as an office exclusive or a delayed listing, which is pretty much the same thing. And then get all your stuff done and then go to market and the MLS, however you market. But just know that there's options there. You can so the marketing expenses one's on here, right? So it's about $400 for us to do photos and drone and website and everything and stuff like that. And then you got your other marketing fees and that kind of thing, Facebook ads if you're going to run them, any other kind of direct mail or just listed or whatever postcards you're going to do, that kind of thing. So there's marketing expenses that are applied there. If you write the contract and you say, hey, look, these are my business expenses. This is what I'm going to do, and just assume that everything's going to the finish line or treat it that way, then you get paid because that's money that you spent. The problem is if those get derailed, and if it's not any fault of the buyer, then it's probably okay, right? I can't control that. This happened and we couldn't stop it or we couldn't get past that hurdle. But on the other side of it, if they say, hey, look, I know we put this up for sale. It's only 30 days into it, but we're done. Withdraw it. We don't want to sell anymore. Or their situation changed or whatever. You can put this clause in and then keep the receipts for those and say, hey, if this doesn't go till the end of the contract period that we're in, which if you sign it for 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, whatever may change what you got going on, but then it gives you an option to collect your fees back and stuff like that for what it is. So it's a significant amount of money we spend to market a property typically. So, okay, if you're doing your buyer agency agreement, these 3 things have to be in there.
Mhm.
This can change if you've altered it or done something different with it. But honestly, and this is the same kind of thing, trying to protect us if we go to court, if there's some discrepancy, we want to make sure that we've had a lot of conversation about the fact that we're going to negotiate our fee in that contract to purchase. And that's where it's going to be ratified for what goes on. If you're doing a consultation fee, you could do something like a $1,500 consultation fee or something like that. And then if you do sign a buyer agency agreement with them, then it could convert into, against the payment of any brokerage fee that you owe or something like that. So if you're doing business this way, it's another possibility for what you got going on. hold harmless agreement, more or less like the big full page one. So not 100% sure if it's necessary anymore, but still there and available to use if you've got a lot of repairs going on. Maybe it's a good idea to sub that in.
And those go on the offers to buy.
Yep, yep. Oh, you could use it in the offer to purchase. You could use it in a buyer agency agreement. Same kind of thing. So you could use it both those places.
Okay, but there's not going to be any repairs being done until those offers kind of come in.
Right. It's just another place to have a conversation. Say, hey, look, I'm going to do the real estate stuff for you. If you end up in a situation where there's other repairs, those kinds of things, I'm still not responsible for that. Like I said, if you had them signing that full big sheet, covers you in this one too. So I may pull that one out of there. If you see it missing, that's why. Final walkthrough. Always recommended that you take your clients and go do a final walkthrough, typically the night before or the day of closing, to make sure that all your stuff is taken care of and set and ready to go. If you had lots of repairs, you'd probably want to go earlier than that to make sure that the repairs are all done. If you have the invoices and all that kind of thing, then you can hold the folks accountable for it that did the repairs, but at least they're done and you know it before you get to the closing table. And then if you walk through and everything's good, then we'll typically put that clause in there and say, hey, everything's good. And you can't hold us releases agent from all liability resulting for it. We typically have the seller or the buyer sign off on it. It just says, yeah, did a final walkthrough. Everything was good. Here you go. We're ready to move into the house.
Is that a separate form?
It is. It is.
Is
It's
that-
it's not required by us right now. So the contract gives you the option to do it. This clause says, hey, if you do that final walkthrough, you're not going to be able to hold us accountable. I'm sorry. You have to hold us harmless for anything that would be done by a third party. Or you have the big sheet signed and stuff like that for what it is. So if you're going to do seller financing, it is an option in there. This gives you a very, very high level overview, just so that the other agent knows what you're coming at them with, and then it tells you within the clause, get an attorney to draw up the actual documents. So it's just a place to put it, fill in the blanks, and then once it does, then you're going to have to get to an attorney to take care of the other parts of it. You can do cleaning if you want. Agree to who's going to pay for the cleaning or whatever the case is. If you want to have it in there, you can do that. Ask the seller to pay for it. Says at the seller's expense prior to closing. And it's basically everybody has a different version of what clean is. Some people have a very low version of what that is. Some people just get behind when they're moving. They just don't get out on time. They don't end up leaving themselves enough time. So trying to take care of your buyer coming in, seeing if that option's in there. Some agents will pay for it as a closing just because that's the way they do business. So every house that they list when they're in their seller presentation and they're like, hey, I know you're going to be stressed at the end, all that kind of thing. So I'll take care of, I'll pay to have the house clean before it goes out or whatever. And then everybody has their own limits or rules on whatever that is, but just something some agents do. Backup offer. So sometimes in the MLS or sometimes if you talk to an agent, they'll be like, hey, we're under contract, but we are willing to accept backup offers. This language has to be in the backup offer because everybody has to know how those are working. So your first position offer and then your second position, these guys have to acknowledge that they know it's going into second position and that there's already an offer in place on the house.
So if I'm the seller and I receive an offer, I would counter offer with this clause.
If you're talking about if you already had it under contract.
Yeah, if I have it under contract and I receive an offer and the seller still wants to like entertain that one, I would send a counter offer back.
Yeah, most of the time what you're going to get is if it's under contract, but you're either going to put in the MLS that accepting backup offers, right, in the addendum portion of it. Please include backup offer language or whatever the case is. So you're usually either going to get them that way, or you're going to get them from somebody calling you saying, "Hey, it's under contract. Would you be willing to take a backup offer on it?" So usually it's already somebody knowing. But yeah, if you got one without that language in it and they wanted to put it in as a backup, then you could counter with that language and just have them sign it. So a lot of times they're going to know it and they're going to put the language in ahead of time. If not, yes, you have to get it so that everybody knows what's going on. Any 1031 exchange stuff we used to have clauses in here for, and we just sort of stopped doing them. Every third party 1031 company tweaks that language a little bit.
So they're gonna have it their own way anyways.
So just ask them because you know that it's a 1031 going into the offer or the listing. 99% of the time, if
What's the 10?
1031 is an IRS program, it's not a program, it's a program, I guess. You can take any kind of rental property or anything like that that you have, and you can take money out of it when you sell it. And if you invest it right directly back into something that qualifies for the 1031, you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Okay, so you're just pushing money over without.
Right. As long as it goes into, and it's got to be similar asset class. There's some rules on it and stuff like that.
I remember something.
Yeah, and it's a great advantage so that people can take a lot of times they'll take and use it as move up. So they'll take like a fourplex and sell it and maybe move up and buy a 16 unit apartment building. Instead of losing that money on taxes, they can take it, put it directly into this next one. The deal is though, is the way the rule is written is that you can't ever take possession of the money. It has to be a third party company. And then that third party company takes possession of the money that you sell out of this one and pulls it in, takes it, puts it into this one, and they get the deal done on the other side. But that way, the taxpayer never actually had possession of the money or the funds from what he or she sold, and they're just putting it directly into the next one. So there's some rules about it. Every one of those third party companies has a little bit different tweaks on it. Just
if this happens, somebody already has a plan to do that.
Yeah, and you just say, "Hey, third party company, whoever you are, tell me what clause you want me to put in," and they usually just have one. They'll copy it. If you don't have one, then if they don't have one, I might get a different third party company. I don't know. They should have something for what it is. And then certificate of occupancy. If you have new construction, there's going to be a lot of things that are crazy and wild because you're going to get builder documents. A lot of times when we go to put clauses in, um, because we're going to sign off on spec sheets and plans and those kinds of things. We'll just add one kind of clause in a lot of times that says, "Hey, uh, we need a certificate of occupancy, of course, when all the construction is done and before we close, so that we can move in." So the contract's contingent upon that. And then the second part is that everything has to match the specs and plans, and everything has to be agreed upon in writing and signed by both parties. And a lot of times that's in the builder docs. If not, we put one in kind of that matches up with it and stuff. But new construction is a different animal. If you go to new construction, we want to have a conversation about it for what it is.
Okay.
Okay. That's all the clauses that are in there. If you bump into something that you're trying to make a clause for and you don't see it in there, we pulled out probably 20 clauses because everybody starts writing one for everything and you don't really always need them. And it gives you just, if there's something else in there, we'll write it, get Mike to approve it, and we'll put it in there that we need. But we've been doing these for about a year and a half now. And I think maybe one or two, three times as we had to write some other clause or something like that for it. So
Okay. Well, like I said, I do have one coming up probably in the next week and a half that he just wants so little from me and is going to give me so little that I don't want to be obligated to do a bunch of advertising, do a bunch of
right,
what I would normally do for a person.
right.
And I'll just send that over to you before.
Yeah, and we'll have to talk about it a little bit because the question too is if somebody does call you and all you're doing is putting it on the MLS, you somehow we're going to have to define what your service level is going to be on the other side. Because if you put it in and you have to have a lockbox on it, and other agents are going to go show it, but there has to be, it's not vacant. Have to figure that out. I mean, you could end
It
up.
is vacant.
Is that okay? So that helps some. That helps some. Because I was going to say, if you end up having to coordinate showings and get him in and out of there and that kind of stuff, it's going to be way off the deep end.
Yeah, I'm not gonna agree to that if that's the case, because the guy straight up said, yeah, real estate's easy work. I mean, all you guys do is push some buttons. I'm like,